So now we're joined by three Hubbard Street company alum. We've got Ron DeJesus and Krista Ledden. And is it Joseph or Joey?
It's Joey Pacetto.
Joey Pacetto. Yeah, nice to see you all. Thank you so much. We're gonna, try to keep these to 15 minutes. So I want to jump right in and maybe set the stage a little bit. I guess pun not intended. To hear about the THART project that was initiated by Hubbard Street in the 90s. And Ron and Joey, am I right in that you were already with Hubbard Street before Twyla came in?
Correct.
How long had you been dancing with the company?
For me, it would have been 5 years when she came in the 90s, early 90s.
I came in at 85 and she came in at, well, she came to observe us in 89 and then we started the project in 90.
Okay. So in those first few years or so, Ron and Joey both, I'm curious, like what about your work with Lou or your training do you feel best prepared you to take on Twyla's choreography in 1990?
The vigorous training. We had ballet class every morning and we were grateful. And we also could take class outside with Larry Long, a beautiful, incredible ballet mentor to the city of Chicago community. Beautiful pillar. But then we also had jazz immediately. So we had classes back to back. And then the rep we were doing too really escalated us as far as stamina and different styles and different approaches. So we learned to morph and really engage the movement with ease. It was just a real natural dovetail sort of relationship. It felt organic and it felt very natural. Joey, what's your spin?
Yeah, we I don't even know if companies still do it, but we were required to take ballet class every day. And if we weren't in rehearsal, then we were required to continue like our training with either jazz with Claire Bataille or even Ginger Farley, some of the other alumni that were with us when Twyla first came. So we were always dancing, whether we were in rehearsal with another choreographer or with other people that were in the company. So it wasn't like we were sitting around ever. And everybody was always dancing.
And I want to add, Ginger and Claire were like the principal lead dancers at the time with Hubbard Street. So they were, iconic. And we were like humbly.
Yeah, they had been with the company for, at least since I know Claire and Ginger were almost from the beginning. Claire definitely. But and then me and Ron kind of came up almost around the same year. I was a little bit before him, a few months, but basically the same time.
Okay. And Krista, we did get a chance to talk really briefly a couple of weeks ago, and I was surprised to learn then that you actually came to Hubbard Street through Twyla.
Yeah, I wasn't with her very long because she got rid of her company. She disbanded her company. I was there the last, year and a half, and she went to be artistic director of American Ballet Theater. So that's when she started selling her works, and Hubbard Street, who I'd grown up in Chicago. So I knew, actually I danced with Ron a long time ago in a class, in Randy Duncan's class.
Oh, mercy.
And you were in Joseph Holmes at the time.
Right.
And he paired us up together, which I thought was great.
Uh-huh.
But I grew up with Hubbard Street. So I was very lucky to get into that company for sure. There was only maybe 14 when I joined. There was one dancer who was about to leave when I was coming in, so it was a smaller company. But yeah, I was with Twyla, and so I did at least have that training, and I also had ballet jazz training throughout my life. I used to take at Hubbard Street on my breaks from school. But when Twyla first came, it wasn't like they just set a piece. The entire summer, I didn't learn any other rep other than Sue's leg and the fugue, which were pieces that I don't think Lou necessarily wanted right away, but it was the best way to indoctrinate the company into that. So we studied it every single day from 12 to 5:30 with a lunch break. That was after class too. We would be studying Sue's leg and fugue, and that really set the stage for all of the other subsequent pieces that came.
And long are the days of like long times to set works. Now you set them in a week. Like you know. And now, at that time, what Krista is mentioning was 6 weeks excursion on 2 ballets. So the rehearsals were redundant and beat it into our DNA till we really absorbed it. So
And
Chris,
it was also the hottest summer of the year. It was like 100.
we had no
No
air
air
conditioning,
We were dying.
dying.
So hot.
There
We
is
could-
no THARP technique. There's no THARP class that you can go and take. So that's why she chose 2 of her most fundamental pieces to, you know, it could, I would argue it was a little bit of overkill, but it did, at least for the core, because there were 4 people in Sue's Leg. It was double cast, so that was 8 of us. And then the fugue, there was 2 casts, 3
Yeah.
women, 3 men. So there was a core group, even with that small company, that really got the most out of the training, I'll say.
Yeah, and I do have to add, I remember when we were doing this work and well, I got a little arrogant and felt like, oh, I'm a Tharpinian now, right? I thought I really engaged and I understood the approach of her style of movement. And then it had been a couple of years, and then we were in a lunch break and we watched a video of ourselves, and I was sitting very high on my pedestal, and as I was watching the video, I was like, oh my God, I'm so far from reality, and I still was not there. And I think she uses the model Martha Graham. You don't become a cultivated artist until it's like 10 years of your commitment. And then I understood you have to really surrender. And we were so far from a Tharpinian dancer. And I learned a great deal by observing. And I was like, oh, wow. And, you know, Krista was a great instrument to have because she had a little intro prior to our exposure to Twyla. So we always had that reference, how she moved organically. And she did some of the beautiful roles so beautifully. So
Thanks. I didn't have the technique though that these 2 had. So
oh yeah, you did. Yeah.
You
No.
always used to say to me, the technique that I had, it would come through in the performances, but in ballet it was kind of a mess.
Well.
Everybody struggled with each thing that they didn't like, but we all tried to do the best we could. And I thought we did a very good job near the end.
Yeah.
I thought we all finally really sort of succumbed to her style. And I think it was really great to see that.
And then we did the premiere at Jacob's Pillow, Sue's Legs in the Fugue. And then that's when Twyla came back with Shelley Washington. And then the fall, we did Baker's Dozen. And then that expanded. And then the following year, we got to do Golden Section. And some of them were performed at the Holland Dance Festival, the other one in Germany, you know, so we were privileged to then be exposed to a little bit more different approach. It's a different style of choreography in a way, you know.
It also catapulted Hubbard Street into another sort of level as far as touring goes. We were, you know, sort of doing high schools and colleges, mostly in the beginning, and then we started doing major theaters in cities. So it really, and then of course we went to Europe as well. So the whole THARP project really bumped Hubbard Street up another level, which is what the reason was of hiring her, to continue the progress of Hubbard Street's, you know.
You can ask Twyla this, but to that point, I think we may have been the first company that had
You're right.
big rep. Like now Miami has it, like everyone.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we were the first sort of group that had several of her works out, and as she wasn't touring, people wanted to see it. So
I think she had like a little layoff time. She disbanded her company. She was in a lull. Nothing was really going on. I think she saw the company and the diversity of the dancers as a great platform to have her work still prominent, alive, executed with the right kind of instruments. And she bestowed a lot of privilege and honor. It was like, wow, okay, she saw us in that light. It was terrified every time she came to a show. She always say, you're busting through the gates way too much. We're like, what? You know, we couldn't comprehend. We were just shaking in our boots whenever she spoke, you know. But I think she shaped us as artists as well, you know, through that body of work. So I think we all benefited in so many different ways. And I also learned internal meter, keeping the meter inside. That was one of her big components. I remember I had her interview my students here last spring, and she was just saying to them, what music did I use in my first 5 years as a choreographer? And of course, they were stumped. They're all babies. They're still trying to learn who she is. And I was kind of like, oh, is this a trick question? Only to find out that, well, she never used any music. And she did it for 5 years. She didn't choreograph to anything. And I was like, so really had to go inside and keep your internal meter, which then led us to, because then her other works like Golden Sector is like right out of a cannon. It's like full throttle. And you have to keep that calmness because you need that high energy, but keep it in a harness, so you can spread your energy out equally, so you don't sort of exert yourself in the first 2 minutes, because you can upchuck a lung in some of those ballets. Right? Help me out, guys. Remember sitting in the wings, just dying, ripped throats and hyperventilating, and yes.
I thought it was a really interesting mix. I know you're not even asking questions. We're just telling you.
You're doing my job for me. This is perfect.
I thought it was, so with Twyla's company, everyone had their own individual voice. And when I first got to Hubbard Street, some of the best, most beautiful things that I've ever seen Hubbard Street do, everyone did perfectly in sync. It was incredible. And I was wondering how those two would mix. And I actually thought that Hubbard Street did some of the stuff, I could see more of the choreography because we had more of a unity at Hubbard Street than they did at Twyla. Everyone was on their own path, and everyone was a superstar, which was kind of exciting, but it was kind of a mess, when you would see it online. So I really thought Hubbard Street brought such great clarity to some of that chaos.
Yeah, I have to, because she did a lot of her stuff with BAM. First, I want to acknowledge the three repetitors, Jenny Way and Rosemary White. No, what was it?
Right.
Rosemary Wright, yeah.
Right.
And then Shelley Washington.
And Shelley Washington.
And they were really instrumental in cultivating and conveying the information and really drilling us in such an organic way. So I have to just kind of do a little shout out for them, because we would not have become half of the artists and with her body of work without their guidance. So I just want to
they were there for Twyla in the beginning when she was creating her initial stuff. So,
and then when she started her company, there's a wildness and abandonment, because I became a repetitor for Twyla down the road. But when I would go back reference-wise, like Golden Section and Sinatra, to see the rawness of her company at that time that she built these works, there was something kind of courageous. I mean, you went for things and you played on the edge of danger. And as ballets get remounted and remounted, they go through a filter and they come homogenized and they safe. And some of the ballerinas don't want to take that chance and really throw themselves. And so it was hard to get them. And I would use some of that footage of her original company, the black and white, when they're in rehearsal rooms at BAM, as footage to inspire them. You see how crazy wild they are, and that's what's so exciting. And to kind of let them have a visual aid. And Hubbard Street had a cleaner. Lou was very in parameters, and he kept everything pristine. So we had a nice balance of both. We could be wild when we wanted to, but then with her works, and then with his, we within the parameters, put a button on it. And yeah.
Lou was really a stickler. We rehearsed a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that came from Fosse from Lou, because Bob Fosse used to rehearse the people so much that by the time opening night came, you weren't nervous because you knew the piece backwards and forwards. Mm-hmm. And I think Lou, being a Fosse dancer himself, sort of that really stuck with him the whole time. And we rehearsed a lot. I don't even know if companies rehearse.
Dancers don't perform like we used to.
No, they don't.
It's awful. It's like they get a weekend at a theater here at Orlando Ballet. We had time to develop.
We had full tech rehearsals in every single theater we were in. And it was a full out run through from everyone, every single time. And that was before we even did the show for an audience.
Yeah.
So
you had to pick how to balance your energy for the day, because you knew he wanted to see it full out all day long, and in the evening you had to throw it in fourth gear. So it was a different, we had lungs of steel back in my day. Right, yeah.
Well, when you were talking about, the 6-week rehearsals and now these full-on techs and everything, I almost said, wow, what a luxury.
Yeah.
But then I thought to myself, but that should be how it is, unfortunately.
I know. Well, every time you're sitting on the soil of any dance company, you're a dollar bill. per diem and fares and flights, and so they want that short, tight little encapsulated deliverance.
Yeah.
Let's add water, and I'm just like, yeah, but it's like eating through a drive-through. Ultimately, it's not the outcome is going to be really bad. You need the time to cultivate, to comprehend, because then it just becomes superficial and it's a facade and it's not really part of their DNA. And you can tell when a company owns it and when a company is just fabricating it, you know? Just time,
Yeah.
like anything, like good wine.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm so jealous of the three of you getting that time with Lou and Twyla.
Yeah.
For sure. It just sounds like a dream, and it's been so nice to learn a little bit about it. I hope we can continue the conversation again soon, sometime in 2021, if you're willing. But thank you all for taking the time and sharing your memories. And yeah, to be continued.
Absolutely. Good luck with your endeavors here.
Yeah,
Appreciate
great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
it. To
That's
the